Bitcoin is down in a very big way. Is there something going on here with Trump, precious metals, sound money? You have some unique takes on how President Trump and his action are playing a part in some of this.
Not only are the metals being repriced, but they're being repriced for collateral purposes in order to fix the balance sheet of the United States, fix the budget, fix the money, fix the world. That's how you fix the world. You fix the budget by getting rid of all the fraud and theft. And you find out, oh, by the way, you guys stole that money? How about I don't owe you that treasury bond that you think you owe? You're a purveyor of stolen goods. Therefore, your claim to property against that stolen good is zero.
Government officials insist we will continue to keep you informed as this story unfolds.
Welcome to the Money Block with Matthew J. Moore, the Bitcoin-focused program that's waking the masses to the fiat money Ponzi scheme. Money is changing, and your freedom is at stake. So stick around and learn how to empower yourself for this new digital age. Now, here's your host, Matthew J. Moore.
And welcome, America. Welcome, world. You are here at the right time, right place. That's right. This is America's Bitcoin-focused TV and radio show. We're all over the place, so I want to welcome all you Bitcoin newbies, lovers, and experts. We're coast to coast on BizTV, and man, every time we do a recording, every time we have a show, I'm never disappointed, and I think today you're going to be super stoked after all this is over because our guest, he's going to bring us some enlightening thoughts around some geopolitical events, money, sound money to be specific, gold, silver, Bitcoin. Tons of chaos in the markets right now, some good, some bad, but we're going to have him unpack that for us. But before we introduce him, I just want to let you guys know that if you're watching online, be sure to give us a like, a subscribe, a comment, be a part of the conversation. Let Tom, who our guest is today, I want you to speak your mind. Let him know what you think as we have this conversation. But as I kind of teased and previewed there, our guest today, Tom Luongo, he is by far making a lot of noise when it comes to this idea of a counter revolution. Is there something going on here with Trump, precious metals, sound money markets? Well, hang on, because we're going to bring light to that. So, Tom, as we dive into this, I want you to kind of just share a little bit about yourself so the viewers have some context about maybe why they should be listening to you.
Well, I am the publisher of the Gold, Goats, and Guns blog, podcast, and newsletter, which is really focused on the intersection of geopolitics and finance. And, you know, as the name implies, I'm a kind of a hard asset kind of guy. I'm also a kind of no nonsense kind of guy. So let's put it that way as well. Background, my life is kind of like Dave Collins. Like I'm a research chemist first, and then eventually wound up having to do this for a living because, well, I never decided to pursue a PhD. And so for that reason, once you find yourself in your mid 40s without either an MBA or a PhD in this overly credentialed world, guess what? You're unemployable. So, I just decided to monetize my hobby. Eventually, I've been writing for Newsmax since 2013, writing a bevy of newsletters for them as well. And then in 2017, I went independent with my partner Dexter White over at Gold, Goats, and Guns, and we've just been plying the trade ever since. And that's the thing. And we believe very strongly that the importance thing to understand and that what we're doing wrong today is that people just aren't thinking clearly because they've been bamboozled by a bevy of, well, words I'm not allowed to use today. So let's just put it that way. So as we get into this, you'll understand what hopefully the audience will understand what I'm talking about.
I love it. Well, we got to go to break here in just a minute, but before we dive deeper with Tom, I just want to let you guys know that if you're watching and these concepts of sound money kind of tickle your brain a little bit, you want to understand it a little bit better, you're going to see a QR code that pops up right over there. Be sure to get your phone out, scan that. That is a free copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. It's my way of saying thank you for tuning in, and it'll help prepare you for the coming changes, monetary changes that we may see here in the very near future. But definitely want you guys to stick around because it is not going to be boring, I'll tell you that much. Tom never disappoints, especially the past shows that I've seen. So let's do this, but we'll be right back. This is the Money Block. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We'll see you guys in just a minute. What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is round two, segment two of the Money Block. You've tuned in at the right time, right place. This is on Coast to Coast BizTV. Hopefully you're watching on TV. If you're not, you're probably watching online. If you are, be sure to give us a like, a subscribe, comment, be a part of the conversation. Definitely want you to share your thoughts because it is important. But also, I just want to let you know that we're going to be talking a lot about sound money. We're going to be talking about geopolitical events. We're going to be talking about some ideas that maybe you as a viewer tuning in for the first time, this is a new topic for you. So if it is, be sure to scan that QR code that's right there on the side of the screen. It is a free gift, a digital download to my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty, and it'll help you give you the ideas, the tools, principles that may guide you in this coming transition that we may be experiencing right now. But the guest that we've had on today, we're going to go extremely deep with him. He's got some very popular opinions. I think they're popular, but I'm kind of a fan here. So, but on the line, we have Tom Luongo. He is a publisher and founder of the website goldgoatsandguns.com. But Tom, before we went to break, I was just having you introduce yourself a little bit. Let's dive into the nuts and bolts of this. Let's give some context for people. Are you a sound money fan? Are you a fan of gold, silver, and Bitcoin?
Yeah, you could say that. It's been that way. I started buying silver in 2002, and gold soon after that. Bitcoin, I was actually Bitcoin. I'm like an OG in Bitcoin, and not that I have a tremendous amount of it left because, like everybody else, you lose them, you this that, and everything else. But I wrote my first article about Bitcoin when I first was introduced to it back in July of 2010. I wrote for Lou Rockwell. I wrote an article about alternative currencies and everything else, and I had just discovered Bitcoin. Just read the white paper at that point, and I went, "Oh, wow!" Because at that point in time, it was really interesting for me. I was thinking about monetary theory and all of this stuff, and I was thinking about a particular. I had an idea for like a foundation-like series about talking about corrupting the incorruptible money, and I was trying to figure out my own form of incorruptible money. And then I read the Bitcoin white paper and went, "Oh, well, look, they did it." And I went, "Oh, there it is." I'm like, and it was really funny, and I'm like, it was literally me doing that, listening to all manner of stuff. I was at the time working away from home and spending most of my weekend, at the end of every week, traveling back and forth to my wife and daughter up in North Florida. I was working in South Florida, so I had 4 hours in the car every day, twice a week in the car, ingesting all manner of things, and that's kind of where this all wound up. Why I wound up here. So yeah, you could say I'm kind of a fan of gold and silver and Bitcoin. You could say that.
That's a good. That's a good point. It's in your URL, your website URL, gold especially. But let's dive into this. So markets, people have been watching markets. Gold and silver have been performing phenomenally over the last year or two. We have seen some major volatility. Bitcoin is down in a very big way. Some people are speculating new bear market, which I'm kind of leaning towards that way. But let's get your context on here, your position, because I think you have some unique takes on how President Trump and his actions are playing a part in some of this.
Yeah, I know. I don't believe that we're entering a new bear market in Bitcoin. If anything, I think this is the final washout before we start to get the next big move to the upside. We were talking about, like last night, I'm watching, like everybody else, we're watching 64, 62, 61. Oh, bounce. Now it's 71.
Yeah.
And you're getting the V-shaped bounce on the day. And as a technician, as a market technician, I'll watch it today to see how the daily closes and then how the weekly closes tomorrow, and see where we wind up. But the reality is that in order to get to the next bull market, and this is where where Martin Armstrong and I agree, you've got to get everybody on the wrong side of the trade. You've got to get the emotional crescendo on the wrong side of the trade. So in order to have a bull market, you got to get everybody short. In order to get everybody in order to get anybody short, you got to get everybody long. And so you saw this, reversal of fortunes in gold and silver last Friday, where everybody was long, and oh my God, is it going to go to $6,000? Is it going to go to $7,000? I mean, my phone was blowing up left and right. I'm like, just keep watching it. At some point, you're going to go through an emotional peak, and if you're watching the ticker every 4 minutes, you're probably there.
Yeah.
And if again, it's the whole like shoe shine salesman, the shoe shine guy. Indexed, right? If the guy who's shining your shoes outside of the stock exchange is telling you to buy Nvidia, maybe you should short Nvidia. Maybe you should sell your position. Same kind of thing. When everybody and your brother is telling you that Bitcoin's going to 300 grand, well, maybe you might want to think that's got to go to 70 first before it can go to 300 grand. And I've just, one of the things that I do with the patrons on a regular basis, and was one of the things I do, is exactly that. I'm like, look, at the end of the day, I have my ideas about what I think is going to happen and why I think Trump is going to do X, Y, and Z and what's going on here. But, the markets are always going to tell you what's actually happening. So that being said, Scott Bessent's very, very clear what he wants to do. He wants the Treasury to take a lot of monetary responsibility back from the Federal Reserve. He wants Bitcoin as a reserve asset. As a matter of fact, I've got Stephen Mirren's Mar-a-Lago Accord article literally up on my other monitor for me to read after we get done with this interview. I have to reread it so I understand what's happening, because now it seems to be a really good time to reread that in light of how we've gotten to this kind of emotional peak in all the hard assets. This is very clear that what he wants to do and what he needs to do. And I found it really interesting that the slop that came out of the Epstein files this week was that, oh, look, Jeffrey Epstein was destroyed Bitcoin, and not understanding one whit, to spook the normies about, well, how does Bitcoin actually work? And well, of course, if you know anything about the way the code actually operates, the way the miners can look at the code and go, we want to do that? No, you can't do that. Yeah. Like, we're not going to accept that BIP. We're not going to accept that.
So you're saying Jeffrey Epstein isn't Satoshi Nakamoto?
I'm saying I don't think anybody is Satoshi Nakamoto. I don't think Satoshi was ever one person. It was always a group of people or something. It doesn't really even matter.
Yeah.
It's like at the end of the day, this is one of the things I run by people all the time. I say, look, I don't care who actually is City of London or who is Davos or who is that or who. I don't care. I don't care their ethnicity. I don't care where it came from. I don't care if you want to go back 2,000 years and try and figure out that it was the Venetians or it was the Romans. I don't care. What I know is that today, here, right now, this is who we're dealing with. We're dealing with this group of people. Those are the people who are currently sitting at the high table, and those are the people that we need to deal with. Well, it doesn't matter where they came from. All that is a distraction and slop. It really is.
Well, at a very high view, give us your take on this overall strategy in about 2 minutes of what Trump is doing.
What Trump is doing is it's not really all that difficult. He is, my friends Susan Gokinda and Barbara Boyd over at Promethean Action will call it the American system of productive political economy. It is Hamiltonian economics of it's going to be a public-private partnership, at least in the medium term, and that's going to bring in digital assets, and it's going to bring in gold and silver. It's going to rebalance trade along and productive capacity of the country in a mechanism that is about production first, workers first, and the middle class, as opposed to the false dyad of the workers' revolution because the lower class needs the money and should now be in charge, or the upper class should over financialize everything, and the elites should run everything through a financialized thing of hyper financialized capitalism. You have capitalism on one side, you've got Marxism on the other. Neither of that's a false dyad. The third way through that, of course, is to empower and expand the middle class, the quote unquote the bourgeoisie, and allow them to just go build stuff, raise families, live in houses, and have and improve the lot of everyone, because we all know that that is the path to wealth. And hard money has a role to play in that, in minimizing the amount of abuse of the credit system that happens when the economy is expanding. Credit is not a bad thing. Debt is not a bad thing. It is the hyperfinancialization of debt and the removal of debt from the collateral underlying it, where the middlemen who are playing that game, and this is where I get into City of London, Davos, and everybody else, when they're the ones making all the profit, when they're the ones sucking up all the profit, that the producers and the consumers, that gulf between producers and consumers, when they're in the middle, putting up a toll booth and taking a vig, they're the ones who can concentrate power. When power is concentrated in the hands of the middlemen, that's when we lose. And the middlemen always set everybody against each other. So they start the process of telling the lower classes, hey man, eat the rich, occupy Wall Street, this, that, everything else. And what do? They create a societal blow up and fund things and fund everything on both sides, and then we wind up with the French Revolution. Everybody's getting beheaded, and it's awful, and they do it all the time. Meanwhile, they're running guns and setting policy for everybody on both sides of the equation while they sit there on their pile of hard assets that they've stolen, ready to reboot the system over and over again. That's their gig, and that's what they're trying to do here.
Well, we got to go to break, but I want to dive into your opinions on Davos, those pesky Europeans. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we come back, but this is the Money Block. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. AI is here, money is changing, but freedom has never been more important. I'm Matthew J. Moore, the Money Block host on BizTV, Amazon bestseller, and Bitcoin policy advisor. Book my up to 60-minute talk, Redefining Wealth and Freedom God's Way. I'll teach your church, business, or civic group how to secure money, freedom, and faith in the digital age. This is urgent, so I'm slashing my fee from $1,000 to $500. Cover my travel, and I'm there. Scan the QR code now. Spots are filling fast. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is round 3, segment 3 of the Money Block. And boy, you've tuned into the right place, right time. We are syndicated coast to coast on BizTV. I want to welcome all of you Bitcoin newbies, lovers, and experts. This is the Money Block, where we have conversations that matter. Today, we're talking about geopolitics. We're talking about gold, silver, sound money in general. How does it all fit into the picture with Bitcoin and what's going on with the world? I've got the perfect guest to go through it. We've been having a good conversation with him. But before I bring him back to the stage, I just want to let you guys know that as we have this conversation, if you want to go deeper into these ideas of sound money, what's constitutional money, you can scan this QR code right here on the screen. Just pull out your phone, scan it. It is a free digital download of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. I think you'll enjoy it. You'll get some principles and ideas that may help you in the coming future. And if you're watching online, hey, be a part of the conversation. Like, subscribe, comment. We want to hear from you. So, all right, let's put this into high gear. Let's bring it back to the table. We've got our guest, Tom Luongo. He is a publisher. He's the founder of the website goldgoatsandguns.com. He's very opinionated, but I love it. I think it's very well needed in this time. Tom, let's pick up the conversation here. We were having a conversation about potentially repricing things, fixing the budget. We're talking about pesky Europeans in London. Does any of this correlate and come together when it comes to what we're seeing in the markets right now?
Oh, absolutely. Let's start with the basics. Like when we left off, we were talking about, how these people get themselves involved as the middlemen between producers and consumers, and how do they finance that? How do they do that? Well, they do that by taxing us on everything, right? They do this by telling us that we need them to regulate our markets and to regulate everything about our lives, right? And so now they're trying to tell us that we need to have a 24/7, 365 panopticon, and that is also that's also the basis for the monetary system and all of it. But all of it virtualized to the point where the only people who have control over the supply of the money is them, and then and they also control the access to the money through what their desire for a central bank digital currency. Now, obviously, what Trump is trying to set up is a completely different system. He's actually trying to set up a collateralized digital economy, right? And Bitcoin is at the core. U.S. Treasury stable-backed stable coins are part of it that are Treasury issued and or local bank issued, right? We just had Tether announce USAT the other day, right? Which is the first of the Genius Act compliant stable U.S. dollar stable coins that are now going to circulate domestically in the United States. They won't circulate internationally. But if you think about that, ask yourself the question: why are we paying income tax? Why do we pay income tax? Why do we pay property tax? Like my governor down in Florida, Ron DeSantis, is making that argument about everybody. He's leading the vanguard to get rid of property tax for primary homeowners. In Florida terms, that would be homesteaded homeowners, those who have had their primary residence and have it homesteaded under the Save Our Homes Act, which can't be taken by the IRS, FYI, can't be taken by anybody because it's yours. And then he's asking the question, like, why should they even pay property taxes if you own the property? It makes no sense. It's an unrealized capital gains tax, right? And if you're against that for stocks and bonds and financial assets, why aren't you against that for your home? Right. So, I mean, I'm okay with paying for government services if the government wants to give me fire departments for $250 a year. Great, I'm happy to pay that. I don't have to buy it in the open market.
What about daycares?
The government's giving me, or about daycares. But this is the thing: when you really stop to look at what these people are doing and what's been revealed, right, in the last few months about. And certainly in the last year with Doge and everything else, what did we find out, right? The Somali daycare mafia up in the Minnesota was stealing all our money, handing it all to the NGOs, who then turn around and hand that to foreign investors who buy our treasuries and then expect us to pay a coupon payment against that. And that coupon payment has to be paid with what? Oh, right, income tax. That's the system. That system needs to go away. And clearly that's what Trump and Bessent, Stephen Mirren, and the rest of them want to get rid of. And we don't need to do that. And there's no reason. I mean, here's another thing I want everybody to really think about. And I said this the other day on Twitter, and I'll say it again. Fix the budget, fix the money, fix the world. That's how you fix the world. You fix the budget by getting rid of all the fraud and theft. And you find out, oh, by the way, you guys stole that money? Like, how about I don't owe you that treasury bond that you think you own?
Right.
But it's theft.
Yeah.
You stole the money. You stole the money to buy the treasury bond. I'm sorry, but this is English common law. You're a purveyor of stolen goods. Therefore, your claim to property against that stolen good is zero. And the truth of the matter is Trump's made that abundantly clear. What has he said? He's like, we're going to find out why do we even think we owe this money? Right. And I think that's exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, well, and you've made the point about silver, gold, copper, this whole repricing process that Trump is pursuing. We need to reprice these precious metals, if I have you correct there. Yeah. So, but you've also made the comment that the LBMA over there is not going to survive this.
No, it's not.
Give us some background or details on that.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Let's. Always thinking in terms of time here. Like, how far back do you go? The LBMA and London, they are the 19th century or 18th and 19th century industrial power. Europe was, right? And by right, because all the goods are flowing through them, they should have the right to figure out how to price and coordinate price and time on the flow of those goods and to go into their factory. So it made sense for London to become the center of the pricing mechanism for that. And then over the course of time, the London Metals Exchange and the LBMA, which is the London Bullion Market Association and whatnot, they became the purveyors of the central clearinghouse and all of it for pricing those commodities. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Britain can barely build a ship today, no less, and they're supposed to be the naval power of the world, right? Or they guess they were. Why are they still getting the outrageous advantage of pricing, of having the pricing leverage over all the world's industrial commodities when they're a post-industrial society?
Yeah, good point. Good point.
And why would the Chinese and the Americans, who are the two current production powerhouses, why wouldn't they demand that right? So in the 21st century, what you're watching right now, not only are the metals being repriced, but they're being repriced for collateral purposes in order to fix the balance sheet of the United States and or China, who has the same problem we have, the way too much consumer credit, way too much local credit, and all the rest of it. A lot of malinvestment from the levering up of the offshore dollar markets over the last 20 years, or 18 years since the 2008 financial crisis, and the era of zero bound interest rates and the coordinated central bank era that ensued from 2011 to 2021. The dollar reserve standard ended in 2009.
Right.
Like it was over. Or certainly the LIBOR dollar reserve standard, not the. I have to qualify that now.
Well, we got about 40 seconds. We got to go to break.
Sure.
We can dive deeper when we come back.
Sure.
But,
why don't we go back? Yeah.
do you have any idea, if you were to be a guessing man, where these prices had to be with the precious metals in order for this strategy to work?
Yeah, there are numbers out there, and I'm not going to be the only one saying things like $20,000 gold, $400 to $500 silver, $1 million Bitcoin. I'm not the only one saying it. I can see that, but I also believe that there can be a negotiated settlement well before those numbers if somebody decides to surrender. So far, no one's decided to surrender.
Okay. Well, we will dive into that and figure out what does it look like to surrender. And if it doesn't, it sounds like we might be in for a fun ride when it comes to price volatility. But guys, stay put. We're going to dive deeper with Tom as we unpack this a little bit more. But stay put. This is the Money Block. We'll be right back after this break. AI is here, money is changing, but freedom has never been more important. I'm Matthew J. Moore, the Money Block host on BizTV, Amazon bestseller, and Bitcoin policy advisor. Book my up to 60-minute talk, Redefining Wealth and Freedom God's Way. I'll teach your church, business, or civic group how to secure money, freedom, and faith in the digital age. This is urgent, so I'm slashing my fee from $1,000 to $500. Cover my travel, and I'm there. Scan the QR code now. Spots are filling fast. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is segment 4, round 4 of the Money Block. You've tuned in to the right place, right time. And I just want to welcome all you guys back to the show because it's been a fun conversation with our guest today. We've been hitting on that topic of geopolitics, how it's related to the markets right now, especially sound money, things like gold, silver, Bitcoin. To me, it just seems like there's a lot of reconstructing of world order going on right now. And money is a big part of that. And but before I bring our guest back on to unpack this even further, because we left it off at a great spot, I just want to let you know that if you're kind of confused about, hey, I want to go deeper into this whole sound money thing, well, you can be sure to scan that QR code that appears right there. It's my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. Half of that book is about monetary policy. So definitely we'll get a lot out of it. But also, if you're watching online, because we're on TV, radio, if you're watching online, be sure to give us a like, a subscribe, comment, be a part of the conversation. Let our guests know what you think about his comments today. But Tom, let's pick up our conversation here. On the line, we've got Tom, who is the founder. He's a publisher, but he's the founder of goldgoatsandguns.com, and love his writings, love his opinions here. Excited to go deeper. But Tom, when we went to break, before we went to break, we were talking about this idea of economic warfare, monetary resets, certain individuals and countries having to surrender, and World War III maybe is primarily being fought monetarily and economically versus with guns right now. So expand upon these ideas. What does surrender actually look like?
Surrender actually looks like, gold and silver not having to go to, gold not having to go to 20 grand, Bitcoin not having to go to $1 million to balance the books, because what it really looks like is that it's called transfer of control over the pricing of the world's collateral is transferred permanently to the United States and or China, and out of the hands of the Europeans, and it's out of the old European colonial empire. Now, when I use the word surrender, let's look at it this way. Let's go back to what we had earlier in the week, which is the big Epstein files reveal. I'm going to give you what I think this actually means. For a year, half of most of the year, Donald Trump's been fighting the final release of all the Epstein files, and obviously the slop that's out there is it's because he's in there and he's a pedo and he's like, no, come on, shut up. No, he knows what's in there. If there was anything in there that was actually damaging to him, they would have used it 8 years ago to keep him from ever coming down, or 10 years ago to ever come down in the elevator in the first place. Like, he was never going. He would have never done so. So that meant that once he had everything, right, now he's using it as leverage. And he's been going around the world to each of the major players and saying, look, I got you. I got you by the short and curlies. Surrender, and you'll be able to walk away. And I think that he's offered the old colonial powers of Europe, what you call the High Table or Davos or whatever you want to call it, in the City of London, I don't care, the Rothschilds. He's offered them all the Putin deal. Now, when Putin came to power in 2001 in Russia, he brought all the oligarchs in and said, look, I'm not going to take your money away from you. You've stolen. I'm not going to do it. It's not worth it. But I am going to say, you stay out of politics and you get to keep your money. And if you don't stay out of politics, I'm going to bankrupt you. Which is what he did to Khodorkovsky and other oligarchs who decided not to take him up on that offer. Everybody else played ball.
Yeah.
Famously, when he was dealing with Oleg Deripaska and got him to sign on the dotted line to, create the public-private partnerships, I think, for the aluminum company for Rusal. And Deripaska was still holding onto the pen. Putin's like, can I have my pen back, please? The ultimate boss move was, you don't even get to keep the pen, right? And I think Trump has done this, and he was trying to use the Epstein files as a means by which to say, look, we know what you did, we know what you've been doing, and we're not going to release it all. And he said this, I don't want to destroy these people's lives. I don't want to do this and this. I don't want to go there. But you got to surrender. You got to give up. Davos, you're done.
Yeah.
And he went to Davos this year and he said globalism has failed and all of this stuff. He's been abundantly clear about all this. And now he's like, all right, fine. You're going to push my hand? You're going to force my hand? You're going to put it out? You're going to make it go out into the open? Here you go. Unredacted. Here you go.
Right.
And now the world is seeing them for what they really are.
Right.
Now we're seeing everything. And none of it is blowing back on Donald Trump. None of it. If anything, only because he fought this release. But why? He was trying to keep the bloodshed to a minimum. I'm a big fan of Patton, right? This is no lie, right? And Patton believed that war was to be fought to win, not to kill the enemy necessarily. That was a byproduct of winning. If you can win without killing as many of the enemy as possible, and then you can win the war, get out with a minimum of bloodshed, meaning that's why he believed in maneuver warfare. It's why he believed in the fighting the war the way he did, was to minimize the bloodshed, liberate, the conquered, and protect the innocent. And we're going to kill the enemy, but save as many lives as possible by doing it. This is exactly the way Trump is fighting this war against the internationalists, against the financialists, or whatever you want to call them, Davos. That's what he's trying to do. And these people are so far gone, they're so inhuman that they don't care. These are the same people that believe that 9 billion people on the planet are 8 billion too many. So they don't care. But he had to at least go through the motions of offering them terms of surrender. They bit in his hand. They told him no. And he's like, all right, fine. We're going to war now. Yeah. And you're not going to like us. And this is when you find out just how angry and how much you're not going to like Americans when they're angry.
But when you say war, you're talking more so economically and monetarily, right?
I'm talking every theater.
Every theater.
Cultural, militarily on the ground here in the United States, financial, this, that, all of it. It's a multi-theater operation because their response to Davos was to really amp up, the crazy in Minnesota. What does he do? He moves Tulsi Gabbard and the FBI into Fulton County. He said, oh, yeah, no, and we've already extracted Maduro. Extracting Maduro out of Venezuela, that was bringing him into protective custody. And anybody who reads that any other way is just not reading the game board. Right. Maduro knows where the bodies are buried. He has all the information on the thumb drives. Why do you think with Maduro in custody, now you can FBI can finally issue that warrant for the voting records in Fulton County. This is the way this stuff works. And you have to be able to read the game board this way to understand that these are all moves on the chessboard. So what do? They turn around and, they activate the Washington State and Seattle again. That's what they're trying. They activate Mark Carney to try and cut a big trade deal with the Chinese, who only give them, lowered tariffs on Chinese EVs. Who cares? Like, Mark Carney, we're coming for you. We know that all of this Antifa money, all of this NGO money, is all laundered through the Canadian banks. We know that the LBMA and the Canadian banks are intimately involved in the drug trade, the suppressing of the prices of gold and silver, all of this stuff, all the suppressing of the price of collateral. We know this. And these guys are all caught short having to deliver physical assets that they don't have against contracts that they've written for paper metal, for paper oil, for paper this, for paper that. And
because that's how they've been suppressing the price, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So because the supply of paper silver far exceeds the demand for physical silver.
And long story short, you're basically saying they didn't choose surrender, and so now things are going to get fun.
Now they're going to fight it out to the death. Okay. I use the mechanism. I use the metaphor of a champion of a master Go player playing against a novice. A master Go player puts 15. We put 15 stones on the board, and then you start divvying up the board and say, hey, okay, look, I've won this game, and this is the way it's going to work. Knowing full well that he's winning by 30, he offers a face-saving 7. Hey, I won by 7. Let's set up and play again. The novice doesn't understand that he's lost and forces him to play it out. Davos is saying, I still have assets that you don't know about. I'm going to be able to go 3 times in a row and put 3 stones on the board and beat you because I own the game board. Don't you understand?
Yeah.
I'm Davos. I'm the most powerful people. I'm insouciant and wise Europeans. You're just stupid, uncultured cowboy Americans. You don't get it. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's where Emmanuel Macron then turns around and raids Elon Musk's ex-office in Paris.
I saw that.
And now is threatening, right? That's the kind of petulant stuff that they do. Macron comes out this morning and says they're going to invest $300 million in AI. Okay. The United States is going to invest 50 to 100 billion with a B. How is France going to compete to that? I'm not saying that all that's going to go for AI. Most of it isn't. It's mostly just going to go to rebuild the friggin' electrical grid, which has been left to die, right? So, all of this stuff is just, it's all just nonsense, and they just refuse to die. They refuse to give in.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to take my guns, gold, silver, and Bitcoin, and grab some popcorn and watch all of this unfold. But guys, we gotta run to break. I want you to stay put. It's been a fun conversation, and we got one more segment with Tom. I can't wait to figure out what we pull out of him on that one. But we'll be right back. You guys stay tuned. This is the Money Block. AI is here, money is changing, but freedom has never been more important. I'm Matthew J. Moore, the Money Block host on BizTV, Amazon bestseller, and Bitcoin policy advisor. Book my up to 60-minute talk, Redefining Wealth and Freedom God's Way. I'll teach your church, business, or civic group how to secure money, freedom, and faith in the digital age. This is urgent, so I'm slashing my fee from $1,000 to $500. Cover my travel, and I'm there. Scan the QR code now. Spots are filling fast. What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is segment 5, round 5 of the Money Block. Our last one. Hopefully you've been along for the ride. It's been a fun conversation. And boy, I just want to dive right into it because the guests that we have online today, we've been talking about geopolitics, sound money, things like gold, silver, Bitcoin, financial markets. Like, obviously, there's a lot of changes, a lot of chaos, a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty that's taking place. And I think we've boiled it down to this whole idea of monetary and economic warfare. That's taking place, and there's certain players that haven't wanted to surrender. But if you just talk to the average Joe, you'll notice that there's tension in the air. They know something's not right, but maybe they can't put their finger quite on it. And our guest today, Tom Luongo, he's a publisher, founder of the website goldgoatsandguns.com. I want you to go check that out once the show's finished here. But Tom, let's pick it up back here. We've kind of built this all to some kind of crescendo here. We've talked about this warfare, surrendering. Seems to be that the dam is about to break. What's going to take place here in the coming months and years?
Right. Well, and let's talk. The near future is what matters, right? Like right now, when I look around the markets, and a lot of what I do is a lot of cross-market analysis to try and understand what's happening in the bond markets, what's happening in the currency markets, what's happening in precious metals, which I just view as another currency. Same thing with Bitcoin, right? And what's happening in oil and the commodity markets and everything else. And you just get a broad picture of these things, and you realize that everything's kind of frozen in amber. Like, you look at the Dow, and the Dow wants to break through 50 grand, but it can't, right? You're looking at gold now back to 5,000, wanting to break above 5,000, but it really can't. You're looking at German bunds wanting to break above 3%, and Christine Lagarde won't let that happen. You're looking at a lot of things just kind of stuck. Should the dollar rally? Should it not rally? What's going on here? And a lot of that has to do with the perception of the people who are actually making the decisions of what to do with money, right? At the end of the day, I like to say, like, Marxists like to go to the movies, which is why you shouldn't hate Disney completely, and morons manage money. Morons get a vote in the market, right? I'm not saying morons, but even very smart people are, they're susceptible to a media manipulation campaign. And I have a lot of people, I have a lot of patrons who are Europeans, and they'll tell me flat out, they're like, go look at European media. It's all Trump is evil, the United States is falling apart, yada, yada, yada. It's all nothing but American doom and gloom all the time. And if I'm a guy who runs a family office in freaking Luxembourg or Nice or wherever, like, I'm not going to put my money into that. And so capital hates uncertainty. And so therefore, when capital is faced with uncertainty and volatility, it freezes.
Sure.
And so if you watch everything that Davos has been trying to do over the course of the whole Donald Trump era, you see the same thing over and over again, which is, and Jerome Powell at the Fed. And what you see is them trying to hold capital in Europe from leaving, even though we can read the macroeconomic headlines and go, Germany's a basket case. France is on the edge of a political revolt. The UK is literally sinking into, Alan Moore-esque fascism, like straight out of V for Vendetta. You're watching all of this, and yet somehow these markets are all the cross-market analysis looks at nothing's moved.
Sure.
The U.S.-German bond spread, 10-year spread, isn't moving. It's been held in amber for a week. What that means is they're waiting for a catalyst. They're waiting for that thing that's going to go,
the explosion.
Well, maybe Trump isn't a 2-year phenomenon. Maybe it won't matter if he loses the midterms. Maybe this, maybe that. And I'm going to tell you the big tell. The big tell after the first of the year was that every week, when the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court said, well, you've got things coming out, we got decisions coming out tomorrow, every day leading up to it was, Polymarket says that the Supreme Court's going to get rid of Trump's tariffs. The 3-to-1 likelihood is tariffs are gone. They're going to get rid of them this week. Kept saying it. You see it in the Financial Times. You see it in all the London newspapers. You see it on FinTwit. You see it from the people on FinTwit and in political Twitter that are now, when you see it like that, now you have to map them to working for City of London.
Sure.
And I can name names, but I'm not going to actually do so. You can go look those people up yourself. When the reality is that the SCOTUS kept saying, no, this minor thing, this minor thing, this minor thing. Every day that the SCOTUS does not rescind Trump's tariffs is another week of them trying to figure out how they can. They're not happy with what he did.
Sure.
But they know that they can't overturn them at this point, because the longer this goes on, the more impossible it becomes for them to overturn them from a practical perspective. And the last thing that London and Davos is hoping for is that will get overturned. If you want a prediction, and I'm not a big fan of doing that, but if you want a prediction, I would say that once the SCOTUS upholds Trump's use of the tariffs as national security emergency, that's when all those guys in Nice and Brussels and London are like, okay, I got to get my money out of this place, because they can't stop what Trump is going to do.
That's like hitting the switch, is what you're saying.
It's going to be it may not wind up being the catalyst on the day that everybody points to. You might not see like the euro drop 5% or something like that, or the DAX like drop 14%. It's not going to be dramatic, but it is going to be a turning point. You're going to see it somewhere in the cross-market analysis. You're going to see it in U.S.-German bond spreads. You're going to see it bond spread somewhere, or currency move, and it's going to be 2 or 3 steps removed from where you think it is. It's going to be a German bank that fails. It's going to be something is going to happen. And so, the big question now for everybody, right? Okay, Tom, this is all great, but what does this all mean? What do I do? Well, obviously what you do is, if you've had a big move in gold and silver, right? You're probably overweight in gold and silver. If you had them in your portfolio beforehand, you're probably overweight. $5,000 gold and you bought it for $1,800, you're overweight. Okay? You're overweight silver if you bought at $30 an ounce, and even if you're only trading at 70, you're still overweight. You should probably have lightened up. Even if it goes higher from here, you'll lighten up. What do you do with the rotation? Well, what I would be doing is, and what I recommend to people, what I would say in this case, and what I would do with my money, is I would rotate out of some of these assets that I've already made good money in, and then I would look for where to put the money. And where to put the money now is the question is, if the SCOTUS upholds the tariffs, U.S. Small caps are going to be great.
I'm sorry, man. This is all the time we got for today. But,
I understand.
We'll have you back next time. This is the Money Block, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
The opinions and suggestions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants and are not necessarily endorsed by program sponsors or any station, media company, or platform broadcasting this program. This program is a product of Moore Media, LLC. The information in this broadcast is not intended as investment, tax, or financial advice. Matthew Moore is not a licensed investment advisor and speaks solely from his experience and opinions. All information in this broadcast is for entertainment or educational purposes only. Matthew Moore, Moore Media, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program is not responsible for the success or failure of any person's investment decisions or purchases. Matthew Moore, Moore Media, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program makes no and expressly disclaims all representations, warranties, and guarantees with respect to this broadcast and its sponsors. Investing in any market is inherently risky and can be financially dangerous. Invest at your own risk.